So please welcome Meg Withgott.
I'm not a big fan of advice. To be honest, there's too much of it for one thing. So instead of advice, what I'm going to do is introduce you to 14 women from science, technology, and the arts from literally around the world. The 7 themes emerged: joy, then challenge, conflict, strength. To my surprise, generations was a theme that kept coming back. Stereotyping, which maybe was not surprising, and openness. Let's meet the 14 now.
When you were a little kid, did anyone tell you to go to the backyard and dig because you'll get to China? Meet Professor Kara Swisher, who digs into the past. A paleontologist, her fieldwork takes us to the farthest point on our circle, Madagascar. It's got unique fauna. How, when, and from where these animals arise is a mystery because there's a 65 million year gap in the fossil record. Being a scientist is a joy, Karen says, when you love solving mysteries. Clear across the world to Seattle, Caitlin Robinson-Nielsen was interviewed for television about wildlife biology. She talks about an unexpected but joyful twist in her career.
I was interviewed for the KQED's Quest program, which is their Science in the Bay program. Just had me talk about shorebirds in the bay in general. And my husband, who's a hydrologist, was watching that clip because his company had done all of the hydrology modeling for the Salt Pond project. And so he and his roommate were watching, and he said to his roommate, like, oh, you should set me up with someone like her. So I got a strange email a few days later from his friend seeing if I'd go on a blind date with him. And at first I was like, no, that's really sort of strange. And my friend was like, no, you have to go out with them just to see what kind of guys sit around and watch PBS together.
And the rest is history. Dr. Abby Buchwalder talks to us about the pleasure of flow.
In research, you can get into these periods of flow where you find something yourself, or you pick out something that somebody else has described before, and it just makes sense to you, and you find a connection that you don't think anybody else has found before. And that can be a very exciting and invigorating experience.
Walt Whitman said, do anything, but let it produce joy. Moving up the coast, we have Dr. Loretta Reed reflecting on a computer science journey.
Go on and get a PhD then, because going to school is fun.
And you were good at it.
And I was good at it, right. But I think ever since my very first job, I've been in a group of people who have gone to lunch together. Cheers. And I think that turned out to be enormously important. And when I've been in situations where I haven't had that group of people to spend that kind of time with, I found myself unhappy with my work in ways that it's hard to blame on the work.
Some find joy in beauty. Photojournalist Yumna Al-Arashi actually represents 2 points on the circle: Los Angeles and Yemen.
It makes my heart sing. I think in all the forms of it, just beauty.
Along with joy, a journey is not a journey without challenge. Loretta on what's hard, what's scary.
Long-term plans are important, but not to be so committed to whatever long-term plan that you have put in place that you aren't sensitive to things that are changing around you.
Yeah.
That may in fact lead you to a different place. And that can be hard, it can be scary. And we're often juggling lots of different constraints.
Elizabeth DeLuna and Amy Shapiro had heard of each other in the San Francisco tech world, but they never met until this moment.
I mean, I've had comments made to me like I was trying to toughen you up, like that kind of stuff, you know, where it's just sort of like eye rolling, like really, like, you know. And I never feel, I don't think it's because of my age, I think it's because like I know that it's wrong and I'm very resolute in that fact. And like,
How do I give without getting used up? I struggle with that.
Some challenges involve identity and the sense of self. Again, we see Caitlin.
As a very small female in a room of mostly males, I wish from the beginning I could have been more just assertive. Well, until grad school, really, I was sort of just painfully shy, and I think that really held me back.
Then meet Dr. Liliane Koziol,
who represents both Berkeley and Madagascar.
I was a very shy person. I was very introvert, I would say.
Kiera Henderson picks up this theme. She's studying to be a software engineer in the Internet of Things and security.
As a child, I didn't really speak. So now it's just like making sure people know that I can talk when I present myself and know that I'm comfortable with talking. Because I used to be really bad at it. You just sit there scared. So
conflict as well as challenge.
How do we deal with conflicts in our lives and in our careers? We don't always have very good models. I would say in the work world, partly because often things are set up as competition, and the goal becomes to win the competition, and signs of weakness are viewed as bad. Be open to the possibility that you won't keep doing the same thing forever, and there's a conflict there between, in fact, feeling loyalty to where you work, feeling part of a team, wanting to actually work for the greater good. And realizing that, in fact, the appropriate thing may be sometimes to leave that team that you're a part of.
It's 2014, and that was right before the war broke out, and it was very, very tense at the time. We could very much feel that something was about to happen, and it did. Yeah. Right before we left, it was really rough. It was getting really weird, and it was a Yemen that I've never experienced before. And yeah, it's a really rough thing to experience. Your family's homeland going through war.
Out of challenge and conflict comes strength. Yemena continues on mindset. Amy and Elizabeth on the workplace.
I made a promise to myself never to settle for things. And that's really just about fighting for it. And settling is something I just never want to be able to do.
Presenting myself as confident, but at the same time, I've realized the importance of humility, and I've realized over the past couple of years how important it is to speak up when I'm not clear on something, or when I make a mistake because I'm doing something the first time and I don't. And I've learned a lot from a lot of those moments. And I think when I first started, I felt a lot of pressure to make a team.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of being strong enough and being in the right culture. It's for some reason being in tech doesn't intimidate me, and never has.
Meet Lisa Staprance, a designer in the San Francisco Bay Area.
And then I took on endurance running, I think 3 years ago now. And it was about 8 years after I was on my cancer treatments. And I think it was a matter of doing something you thought you would never be able to do. And when you've gone through a life-threatening illness, I think I push myself more now to do things that I don't even think are possible for me to do. And I'm a woman who's, in her late 40s. My friend's like, let's go do this 100K run in England. 100K, that's 62 miles. Can I do that? We got a trainer, we're going to do it. I'm like, sure. Cornwall Coast, that's a beautiful place, right? I haven't been there yet. So I can run that. I bike a lot. I get out, I hike. And so I did my first 100K, 62 miles, 3 years ago in gale force winds, hurricane, half people dropped out. We were not going to give up. That's my best advice. Do not give up. That is not an option. Dig deep in and you'll find the place, and you just one foot in front of the other. And it took us 26 hours. We ended up doing 72 miles because we got lost, but we finished. And the medics kept coming saying, do you want us to take you in? No, you're not taking us in. We're going to finish even if we crawl. So there were no cutoffs anymore because there were gale force winds and weather was too horrible to have even cutoffs. They let us finish, and we had a standing ovation when we were.
Obviously, physical endurance takes emotional endurance. I didn't get to talk with Mary Okina from the far north, but she remembers how her elders walked miles and miles and got worn out souls. Up over the coast, a theme of generations. Shaida represents Facebook on one side of the world and Iran on the other. She reminds us to take strength from our fathers as well. Now we're going over to Yemen.
Surprisingly, my grandmother, mind you, got married when she was 13 years old. She had 15 kids, and she's like the ultimate badass and like a walking contradiction of what every stereotype says she's supposed to be. She also can't even read.
Generations. Now you finally get to see where Madagascar is. Liliane talks about her mother as a role model, how she was one of the first women in the 50s to drive a car in Madagascar, when almost no one knew how to drive. Her grandmother earned a living as well. She was a seamstress. They embodied being creative, assertive, and not taking no for an answer. Madagascar, I've learned, is an amazing place. And I got to meet Henatra Rosa and Ivo. She's going to be with her sister Noro of the celebrated group Taringa Bay. She gave us permission to air the following clip. Here you'll see them collecting and exploring the artistic repertoire of their ancestors. Back to Loretta in San Francisco.
It's funny, I always knew that I wanted to be a mother, so it wasn't even a question of whether or not. There was the question of when, and there's never a good time. Having children is the best thing I've done in my life.
Stereotyping emerged as a theme. Caitlin.
He said, "You don't look like a scientist." And, you know, obviously it's like, well, what does a scientist look like to you?
And it's pretty rampant, and I happen to be, although I'm Mexican, I'm a white-looking woman, and I think for women of color, it's probably even more difficult and even harder to speak up.
I've also learned the value of being able to see humor and talk about differences and similarities in both serious ways and as well as in, both light ways, because it's such a sometimes talking about differences can feel such like a heavy topic, but being able to talk about differences in the way I talk about what I'm having for dinner.
Karen Sammons reminds us that in male-dominated arenas such as paleontological field research, there are few senior women. From Seattle, we have a high school student. Iris Wong used to be intimidated by the big guys in shop, no longer. And here's Kara giving us advice.
And also, I feel like when you're comfortable with you and you own how you present yourself, how you come across, I feel like people are more relaxed and more open. They're willing to talk to you about things instead of taking like what they imagine to be a stereotype.
In fact, openness was the universal theme that emerged. That was fascinating to me.
I think the most productive thing you can do is be as open and as humble and as curious and not assume. I think those are some of the principles that have helped me.
And the traveling just keeps me fresh, alive, vibrant, and open. I don't ever begin to assume things. You're open to other cultures and people, and it's very important that I don't keep thinking that things are always the same way, that they're constantly alive and growing. So for me to keep myself fresh, I need to be around other types of people and cultures and ways of looking at the world.
Stay open. It's easy to put a lot of energy into what your plan is for your life, but especially in this world that changes so quickly, stay open and flexible and keep your eyes open and your heart open. How do we view somebody else's openness to not knowing things and needing our help as a positive? How do we view people as constantly growing rather than as fixed quantities, and about being open to change? The people you know will have a huge impact on the directions your life takes. And they will often be the ones who will introduce the possibilities of change that you never anticipated yourself. So nurturing those relationships is actually really important. Not for reasons that you don't know at the time that you're doing it. You don't know where things are going to lead. But those are the ways that doors open.
Professor Tina Seelig earned a PhD in neuroscience. She teaches creativity and entrepreneurship at Stanford. She celebrates those who are on a learning journey. Students with a fixed mindset about what they're good at do less well than those with an open growth mindset. These take risks, they work hard, that opens up entirely new arenas along the way. And Stanford psychology professor Carol Dweck studies this mindset. She counsels that some discomfort on your journey will open you to new possibilities. On a journey, you need a map and also fuel to keep you going. And that's what I liked about, going on this big circle around the world. The women you met from around the circle are all able to step back and look at their life's work as a learning journey. Thanks for letting me make these introductions and share this perspective with you. Thanks a lot.